Chapter 13. Watching Zhang Haoran leave, everyone was impressed and jealous at the same time. They were all human beings. How could he reach Mortal Realm Stage 10 and over the clouds art at the age of 13? Was there really such a huge difference between a genius and a normal human being? Yi Chen shook his head, turned around and walked towards the notice board. On the giant piece of paper, there were lines of fist-sized words written with a silver hook and an iron pen. Obviously, it was written by a master who was good at calligraphy. Looking at the paper, other than some things to look out for, there was also a list of rewards for successfully passing the Murin Gang. It was a chi-boosting pellet unique to the Sky Cloud Martial School, which could save 1 month of hard work. If it was used to break through to the condensing reality realm, the success rate would definitely increase. Of course, it was only possible to break through to the mortal realm, and not from the mortal realm to the condensing reality realm. Right now, what I need the most is time. This chi-boosting pellet can save 1 month of hard work. It is very useful for me. Yi Chen smiled and continued reading. The top 10 winners of the Murin Gang will be able to choose a high-rank Mortal Realm martial skill. The top 6 will be able to choose 3 Windy Dew pellets. The top 3 will be able to choose a high-rank Mortal Realm martial skill, and the winner will be rewarded with a chi-boosting pellet. Yi Chen squinted his eyes. He did not really care about high-rank Mortal Realm martial skills, but the Windy Dew pellet was a magical pellet that could help with chi training. According to some people, after taking the pellet for 10 days, the warrior would feel refreshed and free of all distracting thoughts. Their training speed would also increase by leaps and bounds, and it would be much easier for them to learn martial arts. Even many inner disciples wanted to get their hands on it. It was worth more than 10,000 silvers. It could only be found by luck. The only downside was that it could not be used frequently. It was said that the effect would get worse and worse every time it was used, until the end, there would be no effect at all. As for the high-rank Mortal Realm martial skill, Yi Chen could feel that his training speed would increase by leaps and bounds, and the quantity and quality of his chi would reach new heights. In other words, with a high-rank Mortal Realm martial skill, Yi Chen's overall power could easily double. Looking at the prize for the first place, Yi Chen forced a smile. Without a doubt, the Yuan boosting pellet was the most valuable pellet. It could help a Mortal Realm warrior level up, and it could even help a warrior break through to the condensing reality realm. However, Yi Chen was not confident at all. Although Ma Wu was also a Mortal Realm Stage 10 warrior, he was nowhere near as talented as Wu Zongming and Zhang Haoran. Both of them were geniuses. Their martial arts and martial skills were way better than the others, and their comprehension was also top-notch. It would be almost impossible to win against them, unless Yi Chen could break through from Mortal Realm Stage 6 to Mortal Realm Stage 8. Slowly letting out a breath, Yi Chen made up his mind. He wouldn't hope for the first or second place, but he had to get the third place. If he missed this opportunity, he wouldn't be able to forgive himself. The night was over, and the first rays of the morning sun shone from the east. In the courtyard, Yi Chen, who had just finished a set of fist techniques, was wiping the body refining paste. His body was as straight as a sword. After this Murin Gang, it will be the Yi family gathering in half a year. Whether or not I can amaze the world will depend on today's result. Yi Chen knew very well that the second son of his eldest uncle, Yi Tang, and the daughter of his fourth uncle, Yi Xian, were both rare geniuses of the Yi family. They had reached Mortal Realm Stage 5 at the age of 12, and now that 3 years had passed, they had probably reached the peak of Mortal Realm Stage 10, or even the condensing reality realm. A condensing reality realm warrior was not easy to defeat. Even if Yi Chen had amazing comprehension, he still could not ignore the gap between them. Before Yi Chen even left the house, half of the Sky Cloud Martial School was already in an uproar. The Murin Gang Challenge was an important day for most of the disciples. On that day, there would be some outer elders, inner disciples, and occasionally 1 or 2 inner elders would come to watch. As for the Murin Gang, it was located right in front of the plaza. It was usually closed, and no one would be able to see it from the outside. When Yi Chen arrived at the plaza, it was already filled with people. More than half of the 3,000 outer disciples had arrived, and they were all waiting on the plaza. There were also a lot of inner disciples and outer elders, all of them sitting on the high platform at the back of the plaza. Elder Lin, who do you think will be in the top 10 this time? The one who spoke was a teenager, about 16 or 17 years old. He was very handsome, and his skin was very white. The elder who was called Elder Lin laughed. Yun Tao, you are already one of the best among the inner disciples, and you are also interested in this. Yun Tao said, my talent is not that great, and people did not think highly of me when I was younger. So I understand how the outer disciples feel when they want to be in the top 10. That's true. Elder Lin nodded. From what I can see, most of the top 10 this time will be the same as the top 10 from last time, but with the addition of Zhang Haoran. Zhang Haoran? I have heard of him. I heard that he is the #1 genius among the outer disciples. Yesterday, there was news that Zhang Haoran had already trained his high-rank mortal realm above clouds art to the highest stage, the 5th stage. This kind of talent is really rare. The 5th stage of the above clouds art, no wonder the elder thinks so highly of him. Yun Tao looked surprised. When he was still an outer disciple, he also trained the above clouds art, but even after he became an inner disciple, he still had not reached the highest stage. Elder Lin looked at Zhang Haoran, and said happily, the more geniuses there are in the Sky Cloud Martial School, the more potential we have. If one day we can become a rank 8 institution from a rank 9 institution, as the head elder of the outer sect, will die with a smile on my face. Yun Tao was excited by Elder Lin's words. Don't worry, Elder Lin. Although I am not as talented as the head sister and the others, when that day comes, I am willing to work for the Sky Cloud Martial School and help it become a rank 8 institution. Hehe, as long as you have the heart. It was time for the Mu-Ren Alley to open. Crack! 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 Under everyone's heated gaze, the huge wall in front of the square suddenly cracked open, revealing a deep alley. No one knew where it led to. At this moment, Elder Lin stood up, and said loudly to the sea of people, everyone, today is the semi-annual Mu-Ren Alley Challenge competition. All outer disciples are qualified to participate. As for the reward for successfully breaking the Mu-Ren Alley, you should have seen it on the notice board. I will not say much here. Now, let's enter the first round. Only those who have the ability to defeat a wooden guardian can enter the Mu-Ren Alley. Elder Lin's voice was not loud, but with the help of his Shen Qi, it spread out for miles, and everyone could hear him clearly. Damn, last time I almost beat a wooden guardian, I can definitely do it this time. Me too, but I heard that in addition to the wooden guardians, there are also wooden sword artists. This is a bit tricky. No matter what the crowd thought, the Mu-Ren Alley Challenge competition had officially begun. Kala, 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 a row of 20 wooden guardians walked out. These wooden guardians were 2 meters tall, and their bodies were made out of a strange kind of wood. Their eyes were 2 thin crystals, emitting a cold light. Obviously, they were not ordinary creatures. Yi Chen was not surprised at all. It was said that wooden guardians were a special kind of puppet, invented 5,000 years ago by a rank 5 institution, the puppet school. Although they did not have any intelligence, they could sense the people around them, and use them to attack. The Sky Cloud Martial School had obtained the method of making wooden guardians by chance. Unfortunately, these wooden guardians were not very powerful, only equivalent to a mortal realm warrior. Therefore, they were perfect for testing the outer disciples. Chapter 14. In the first round, 20 people would be tested together. Those who passed the test would stand on the right side and wait to challenge the Mu-Ren gang, while those who failed would have to leave. Last time, Yi Chen only lasted for 3 breaths before he was injured. The test began. Surprisingly, Wang Gang was among the first 20 people. With his peak of Mortal Realm Stage 7 cultivation, he should be able to defeat the Wooden Guardian. At least he wouldn't be killed instantly, which would be a joke. The Wooden Guardian sensed that someone was approaching, so it moved its heavy body and threw a punch towards Wang Gang. The strong wind from the punch blew his hair into the air. Speed was not Wang Gang's forte, so he quickly crossed his arms and blocked the Wooden Guardian's punch. His body was pushed back 3 steps. Stone-breaking strike. After taking 3 steps back, Wang Gang jumped up, raised his right palm and chopped towards the wooden guardian's head. Bang! The wooden guardian's senses were indeed sharp. It blocked Wang Gang's deadly attack with its arms, then punched again with its left hand. The speed of the punch was so fast that it was hard for anyone to react. Damn, the wooden guardian is so fierce. Some of the outer disciples who had just joined the Sky Cloud Martial School couldn't help but exclaim. Even Yichen couldn't help but admire the wooden guardian's power. There was no sign of life, but its movements were steady and powerful. All of a sudden, Wang Gang bent his left leg and used his knee to block the wooden guardian's second attack. He used the force to fly back and landed 5 steps away. After getting some distance from the wooden guardian, Wang Gang knew that he couldn't beat it with brute force, so he had to surprise it. Double Dragon goes to sea. Seeing the wooden guardian chasing after him, Wang Gang gave up on using his stone-breaking strike and used the crouching dragon fist that he wasn't familiar with yet. He twisted his arms, and like 2 evil dragons, he dashed out. Crack! The wooden guardian's fist was locked. Wang Gang shouted coldly. He used both of his arms to block the opponent's fist, then threw out a flying kick. Meteor kick! Boom! With a powerful kick, the wooden guardian fell to the ground. The examiner next to him immediately yelled, "Pass." Different from here, the word "fail" could be heard from other places. Soon, the first group of 20 people finished their tests. Only 4 people passed, and the rest were all eliminated. They had no choice but to leave the square. As for the wooden guards, it was unknown what kind of wood they were made of, but they were basically unharmed. Fortunately, as long as they were defeated, they would pass the test. Otherwise, they would be exhausted to death. Not long after, the second test also ended, and only 1 person passed. 5 people from the third group passed. 3 people from the fourth group passed. No one in the 5th group passed. In the 120th group, Wu Zongming and Zhang Haoran stepped out at the same time. The 2 of them looked at each other and walked up to the stage indifferently. Facing the wooden guardian in front of them, the 2 of them attacked almost at the same time. Wu Zongming's figure flashed, and like a ghost, he appeared in the arms of the wooden guardian. His right palm instantly pressed against the wooden guardian's chest, and with a ferocious shake, the wooden guardian was sent flying like a piece of straw. A clear palm print was left on the wooden guardian's chest, and it could be seen how pure this palm strike was. As for Zhang Haoran, he was even more terrifying. He stretched out his body and directly ignored the distance of 10 meters between them. In the blink of an eye, he stretched out his 5 fingers and grabbed the wooden guardian's head. Then, he stopped in his tracks and swung his arm. The wooden guardian was thrown more than 10 meters away. Damn, he killed the wooden guardian in 1 second. Everyone's eyes were wide open, and they could not believe what they had just seen. Wu Zongming's performance was already amazing enough, and he had sent the wooden guardian flying with 1 palm strike. However, Zhang Haoran seemed to be even better. In front of him, the wooden guardian was like a child that had not yet learned how to walk. In the 123rd group, Yichen stepped onto the stage. Without the speed of Wu Zongming and Zhang Haoran, Yichen only had the exquisiteness of his movements. With just a few punches and kicks, he had defeated the wooden guardian and successfully passed the stage. When the first round of the test ended, Elder Lin stood up and said, "A total of 365 people have passed. The second round will now begin. Now, everyone will enter the Murin gang. Haoran, you said you could help me get the 3rd place, right?" Standing next to Zhang Haoran was a tall teenager, about 15 years old. At this moment, his breathing had quickened, and he could not help but ask. Zhang Haoran did not care and said, "Cousin, don't worry. With your strength, it is not difficult to pass the Murin gang. What is difficult is to get the 1st place, and I will stop the others at the right time." That's great. It turned out that this teenager was Zhang Haoran's cousin, who had joined the Sky Cloud Martial School before Zhang Haoran. He had also participated in the Murin gang competition before, but he was only in the 30s, far away from the top 10, not to mention the 3rd place. This time, If he could get the third place, he would definitely get a high-rank Mortal Realm martial art manual, a high-rank Mortal Realm martial skill manual, and 3 Windy Dew pellets, which would be enough for him to reach the condensing reality realm. At this moment, Zhang Haoran changed his tone, but I can't go too far, you know the rules of the Sky Cloud Martial School. I know, don't worry. Even without your help, I am confident that I can get into the top 10. Good, let's go in. The Mu-Ring gang was like a bottle gourd, the entrance was very narrow, and could only fit 5 people side by side. Once inside, the space suddenly opened up, and there were 10 different alleys. 365 people were divided into 10 groups, and they all chose different alleys to enter. Shoo! 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 In the alley that Yi Chen had chosen, the walls and the ground on both sides suddenly cracked open, and a group of wooden guards and wooden sword artists jumped out. They cut down 5 to 6 people like a tornado, and screams were heard one after another. Dodging the attack of a wooden sword artist, Yi Chen took out his great steel sword from the scabbard and cut the wooden sword in half. Then, he lowered his body and went through the wooden sword in an instant. That was close, luckily we were not in the crowd, otherwise there would be no space to dodge at all. As they moved forward, the number of people became fewer and fewer. From the original 30 to 40 people, there were only 20 people left, and 5 more alleys appeared in front of them, each with 4 or 5 people choosing the same alleys to move forward. On the other side, Zhang Haoran's feet flashed, and his clothes fluttered in the wind. All of the wooden guards and sword artists could not lock onto him. Occasionally, there would be 3 or 4 wooden guards in front of him, but they would also be blown away by his palm. The space became narrow, and Zhang Haoran stopped and thought, the place in front is the place with the most wooden guards. When everyone comes here, I can secretly trip them up and make them hesitate. That way, my cousin will be able to get the third place easily. As for the first place, Zhang Haoran thought that it would be a piece of cake. Even Wu Zongming was not qualified to compete with him, which was why he wanted to help his cousin. Plus, this was the only way to the finish line, even if someone could threaten him, he would have the chance to take action. Chapter 15. Shoo! The first one to arrive was Wu Zongming. He was only slightly slower than Zhang Haoran. Looking at Zhang Haoran with a confused look, Wu Zongming did not know what he was planning. Didn't he say he wanted to be the champion? Could it be that he was waiting for me on purpose? This is ridiculous, this guy is way too arrogant. Although he was confused and angry, Wu Zongming would not waste time on him because of this. He was about to pass through. Wait! Zhang Haoran blocked his way. Wu Zongming's face darkened. What do you mean? Zhang Haoran said lightly, nothing else. Don't you think it's more fun with more people around? There is no need to rush. It has nothing to do with me. Move. Sorry, I can't agree to that. You are looking for death. Wu Zongming was furious. His slowed-down body suddenly sped up, his right fist turned red as it punched towards Zhang Haoran. High-rank Mortal Realm martial skill, Burning Fist. Zhang Haoran smiled and threw out a punch as well. Dong! The two fists collided, the surrounding walls and the ground seemed to shake, a strong gust of wind spread out in all directions. Wu Zongming felt his arm go numb, he could feel 3 layers of power coming from Zhang Haoran's fist. He immediately lost his balance and took 3 steps back, 3-layer flowing cloud force. The 3-layer flowing cloud force was the signature martial art of the Sky Cloud Martial School. Although it was only a high-rank Mortal Realm martial skill, many of the inner disciples were training it, not willing to give it up. The main reason was that the more powerful one was, the more powerful the 3-layer flowing cloud force would be. Zhang Haoran shook his hand to extinguish the fire on his fist. He looked a bit surprised. Looks like I have underestimated you. The burning fist can actually produce fire power. Same to you. Wu Zongming did not dare to underestimate his opponent. He pushed the inner chi in his body to the limit and kept it hidden, waiting for the critical moment to strike with a thunderous blow. The surprise on Zhang Haoran's face disappeared, and he laughed loudly. What do you mean by the same? Don't get me wrong. I only used 70% of my strength earlier. Zhang Haoran had the right to be arrogant. At the age of 13, he had not only trained his chi to the peak of Mortal Realm Stage 10, his Over the Clouds art had also reached the highest stage, the 5th stage, and his 3-layer flowing cloud force had also reached the completion stage. He was confident that he could even fight against a warrior who had just reached the condensing reality realm, not to mention Wu Zongming. Wu Zongming didn't say anything to refute, because he knew that any words were useless. The only thing that could be valued was strength. Pang! Sparks appeared on his red fist. The sparks increased and finally formed a faint flame. The fist wrapped in the flame was like a red-hot soldering iron, hard and hot. Wu Zongming sneered, "Aren't you the only one who hasn't used your full strength?" Interesting, interesting. Zhang Haoran was taken aback. Anger could be seen in his eyes. His opponent had been hiding his strength time and time again, making him feel like he was being looked down upon. After all, when he fought with others in the past, no one dared to not use their full strength. Otherwise, they would have been beaten senseless. An even more intense battle was about to begin. Right at that moment, a human figure flashed past. Seeing the two confronting each other, he cautiously slowed down and moved to the other side of the tunnel. It was Yi Chen. Although he was much slower than Wu Zongming and Zhang Haoran when he was using his full strength, he was still much faster than the others. After all, when facing the clumsy wooden dummies, the more subtle movements would give him the bigger advantage. Fighting with brute force would just be asking for trouble. I didn't expect these two to fight in the Muren Alley without caring about the competition. Noticing the cracks on the walls nearby, Yi Chen knew without guessing that there had been a huge battle here. The result should be a tie, or maybe they were just testing each other. However, they didn't care about the ranking, but Yi Chen did. If these two still didn't want to give up, the first place would probably be his. Maybe it would be a bit unfair, but who wouldn't want a pie falling from the sky? Flashing his feet, Yi Chen was about to enter the tunnel. How dare you? Since when is it your turn? Zhang Haoran was already a bit annoyed. Seeing that Yi Chen was ignoring them and wanted to enter the tunnel, he immediately vented his anger on him. Zhang Haoran's right hand pulled and released, and a cold chi burst out. Wherever it went, a thin layer of frost formed on the ground. High-rank Mortal Realm martial skill, soaking cold palm. Yi Chen's eyes turned cold. He and Zhang Haoran did not hate each other, but his first move was the soaking cold palm. With his Mortal Realm Stage 10 cultivation, it was definitely more powerful than a top-rank Mortal Realm martial skill used by a normal outer disciple. If he was hit by this palm, it would not be as simple as lying in bed for a few months. His meridians would be frozen and he would become a cripple. Although the Yi family was rich and could buy a lot of precious medicines to cure his wounds, it did not mean that he would be willing to take this palm and suffer for nothing. Mountain collapse. Taking out his great steel sword, Yi Chen dashed to the side with the momentum of a collapsing mountain and a landslide. His speed was as fast as lightning. It was a movement from the lone peak of 13 swords that focused on speed and footwork. Ka la la. The place where Yi Chen was standing was covered in a layer of frost. It was not hard to imagine what would have happened to Yi Chen if he had not dodged it. Keeping his distance from Zhang Haoran, Yi Chen said expressionlessly, "This is too much. You are only a Mortal Realm Stage 6 disciple. What makes you think you can be ranked third? Don't even think about being ranked first. Go away." Zhang Haoran did not take Yi Chen seriously at all, even if Yi Chen had just dodged his palm attack. Even a man made of mud had a temper, not to mention the young Yi Chen. His eyes were filled with coldness. Yi Chen's knuckles bulged as he tightly gripped the sword hilt. Although he did not have the confidence, if he really wanted to fight to the death, he might be able to hurt his opponent. What? You still want to fight? Believe it or not, I will cripple you right now. When the higher-ups find out, they will at most punish me a little. No one will give up on a genius like me for you. Zhang Haoran sneered, a hint of killing intent appeared in his eyes. Wu Zongming, who was standing on the side, had no reason to let Zhang Haoran continue to be so arrogant. He said sarcastically, "Such arrogance, I would like to see how you are going to cripple him in front of me." Zhang Haoran said in a creepy tone, "Wu Zongming, have you made up your mind to go against me? Don't regret it." "What a joke, what do I have to regret?" Then let's see who will become a condensing reality warrior first. But I am definitely going to cripple this brat, right in front of you." His body suddenly lengthened, Zhang Haoran put his left hand behind his back, and his right hand was filled with frost chi. He moved like a dragon towards Yi Chen's head. Normal people would not have the chance to react to his sudden movement. In Zhang Haoran's eyes, Yi Chen would not be able to escape. Chapter 16. Feeling the cold chi, Yi Chen felt a sense of danger for the first time. He held his sword with one hand and held it with both hands, forming a thin sword screen in front of him. Puff! Just like ice meeting with boiling water, the sword screen melted under Zhang Haoran's palm power. Seeing that his opponent's palm was about to land on his chest, Yi Chen let out an angry roar and clenched his left hand into a fist. King Kong Infinite. This was the most powerful punch in the King Kong fist. Yi Chen had already practiced it to the point where it was both soft and hard. Combined with his anger, it was pushed to an unimaginable level. Before the two's fists touched each other, there was already a slight cracking sound. Zhang Haoran was shocked, he had never seen such a powerful King Kong fist. It was almost as powerful as a high-rank mortal realm skill. But so what? In terms of quantity and quality of chi, he had an overwhelming advantage. Piss off! With a cold chi, Zhang Haoran increased his power again. He pressed his palm onto Yi Chen's fist like lightning. Boom! The ice exploded, and Yi Chen was pushed back. Blood came out from the corner of his mouth, and his left arm was covered in cold chi. He could no longer exert any strength. Next time, remember to be careful. Not everyone can be offended. Zhang Haoran paused for a second and attacked Yi Chen again. At this moment, Yi Chen did not care about anything else. He shook his right wrist, and the great steel sword turned into a bright cold light and pierced out. It was obviously very close to Zhang Haoran, but at the same time, it gave people the illusion that it was still very far away. Even Zhang Haoran was stunned for a moment. He hurriedly reached out his left hand that was behind his back, trying to catch that sword edge. Seeing this, Wu Zongming knew that even if Yi Chen managed to hurt Zhang Haoran, he would still be disabled. Plus, he would be disabled right in front of him. How could he accept that? Merciless fire. With sparks flying everywhere, Wu Zongming rushed out and threw a punch at Zhang Haoran from the side. Facing two attacks, Zhang Haoran could no longer stay calm. He took back his hands, waved his sleeves, and escaped from the encirclement in the blink of an eye. High-rank mortal realm skill, inching steps. Wu Zongming didn't expect to hit Zhang Haoran, but his opponent's strength made him more and more afraid. Zhang Haoran's over the clouds art had been trained to the 5th stage, the flowing cloud triple force had been mastered, and the soaking cold palm had been mastered. Now, he also had the footwork martial skill, inch travel steps. Who knew what other powerful martial skills he had hidden? Brother, what is your name? Wu Zongming took a deep breath, and turned to look at Yi Chen. Yi Chen was activating his inner chi to expel the coldness from his left arm. Hearing the voice, he said, Yi Chen. You should know my name, so I won't say too much. However, your fist and sword techniques are very impressive. I almost made a mistake. He had also noticed Yi Chen's punch. Although he was injured when fighting with Zhang Haoran, but among the outer disciples, not many could take a hit from Zhang Haoran. Not to mention that Yi Chen was only at Mortal Realm Stage 6. Excuse me. Yi Chen said calmly, but inside, he was anxious. The chi in his palm was like maggots in his bones, he could not get rid of it no matter how hard he tried. At this moment, Yi Chen started to regret his decision. If only he had trained a mid-rank mortal realm art. Even though his chi would not be as good as Zhang Haoran's, it would still be on the same level, and he would definitely be able to get rid of the chi. Of course, it was not Yi Chen's fault. A mid-rank mortal realm art was as valuable as a high-rank mortal realm skill. With his status as an outer disciple, he would not be able to get his hands on one. Although some of the more useless mid-rank mortal realm arts were available in the martial arts pavilion, they were not easy to learn. It would take a lot of time and energy, and if one were to change their chi in the future, it would take up a lot of time to refine the original chi, which was not a good idea. Therefore, Yi Chen was planning to get a good art from the Mu Ren gang, but he did not expect to run into a situation like this. Wu Zongming, you are looking for death. Being pushed back by the two of them, Zhang Haoren's face turned red, then white, then purple, and finally blue. It looked creepy. Wu Zongming said coldly, "You don't have the right to say that." "Very good. Today, neither of you will leave." Ice and Snow Universe. 10 layers of chi rose up, a blue light flashed across Zhang Haoren's body. That was the sign that he had pushed his above the clouds art to its limit. It was obvious that he was really angry and wanted to attack without caring about anything else. Zhang Haoren drew a half circle with both of his hands, and the sharp cold wind gathered into a ball, swirling around and pushing towards the two of them. Who? 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 The cold wind blew like a tornado, and the ground was covered with layers of frost, spreading quickly. Wu Zongming was taken aback. From the power of this palm, it was not difficult to see that Zhang Haoren was only one step away from condensing the fake into the real, and transforming his inner chi into true chi. Otherwise, he would not be able to display the soaking cold palm to such an extent. It was simply like a real blizzard. Prairie fire. Wu Zongming had not used all of his power for a long time, and this time, even his hidden power was forced out. All of a sudden, the heat wave was like a tide, and his face gradually turned red. In the end, it actually became like a fire jade, with steam rising up. And his two fists became even hotter, almost melting. With a terrifying power, he punched out, facing that sharp cold wind. The ground was shaking, and the walls were shaken by the power. Pieces of rubble fell down. There was a loud bang. Zhang Haoren and Wu Zongming both stepped back, but Zhang Haoren only took 3 steps back, and Wu Zongming took 4. At this moment, a shocking sword light suddenly appeared, stabbing straight at Zhang Haoren's left rib. It was as fast as a fluttering rain, and it was silent. You are looking for death. Before Zhang Haoren could even take a breath, he saw Yi Chen attack with his sword. In a rage, he ignored the limits of his body, forcefully gathered his chi, and punched in the air. The fine steel sword was bent like a bow under the powerful chi, unable to move an inch forward. This made Yi Chen have a deeper understanding of Zhang Haoren's power. Zhang Haoren, take my punch. Wu Zongming seemed to have forgotten the fact that he was outnumbered. His feet shook, and his body directly pounced at Zhang Haoren. Without the support of enough chi, Zhang Haoren could not perform the inch travel steps. He secretly hated Wu Zongming as he exchanged punches and palms, and blood flowed from the corner of his mouth. You forced me to do this. Using the impact of the opponent's punch, Zhang Haoren exaggerated 10 steps back. He wiped the blood from the corner of his mouth and said. Hearing this, Wu Zongming thought to himself, does this guy still have martial skills that he hasn't used yet? Yi Chen also frowned. He had to admit that Zhang Haoren was the only genius that he admired so far. He had already mastered a few of his martial skills. Looking at the two seriously, Zhang Haoren clenched both of his fists. A strong blue light shone from his fists, and finally turned into a beautiful blue airflow. Accompanied by the blue airflow, a slight tiger roar came out of nowhere. It was terrifying. Tiger roar, dragon fist. Seeing this, Wu Zongming's expression changed drastically. He blurted out. Top-rank mortal realm martial skill, tiger roar, dragon fist. This is bad. How did this Zhang Haoren learn so many martial skills? Yi Chen had heard of this martial skill before. It was said that among the top-rank mortal realm martial skills in the Sky Cloud Martial School, only the monster-killing fist could compete with the tiger roar, dragon fist. Normally, only the inner disciples could learn top-rank mortal realm martial skills, but Zhang Haoren had obviously broken this rule. Chapter 17. Zhang Haoren sneered and stretched his body. He then dashed towards the two of them like a dragon. While he was on the way, his fist, which was wrapped in blue qi, was thrown out with all of his strength. It left a beautiful trail of light in the air. At first glance, it looked like there was a blue qi dragon on his fist. The roar of a tiger shook the sky. Wu Zongming and Yi Chen had already lost their footing before this punch had even landed. They felt as if there was a peerless dragon swooping towards them, and its power was so great that they couldn't even think of fighting back. Of course, if they did not fight back, they would definitely die. When Yi Chen was about to make a move, he realized that Wu Zongming was already prepared. Zhang Haoren, don't think that you can beat me with your tiger roar dragon fist. Burning fire sacrifice spell. Wu Zongming put his palms together, his qi increased rapidly, fighting against Zhang Haoren's punch. He then jumped at Zhang Haoren and threw out a punch that seemed slow but was actually fast. Yi Chen was shocked. The burning fire sacrifice spell was an extremely powerful auxiliary martial art. By burning qi, it could increase the user's power to a new level. But when the time was up, the user's body would be damaged to a certain extent. If used too many times, the user could even become a disabled person. Boom! When the two fists collided, the debris on the ground flew in all directions. In the next second, both of them were blown back, spitting out a small mouthful of blood. No wonder you have the guts to fight against me, you have learned the Burning Fire Sacrifice spell. The Burning Fire Sacrifice spell was not a high-rank martial art, it was only a high-rank mortal realm martial art. But once used, it could increase the user's power by 30%. However, the side effect was too big, it could damage the user's body, or even cripple the user. So no one dared to use it frequently, it was listed as one of the forbidden martial arts in the Sky Cloud Martial School. Even if Zhang Haoren stopped Wu Zongming, he would have to pay a huge price for it, it might even affect his progress to the condensing reality realm. Wu Zongming was about to say something, but he realized that someone was coming from behind, he sneered, "Sorry, I can't keep you company." Shoo! With the help of the Burning Fire Sacrifice spell, Wu Zongming's speed had reached its limit, he rushed into the tunnel with a wave of heat, and disappeared in a flash. I have to say, you're very lucky. Zhang Haoren wanted to teach Yi Chen a lesson, but he was afraid that Wu Zongming would take the first place. Not to mention that he was not only injured, but the tiger roaring dragon fist had also consumed most of his internal qi. It was hard to say whether he could get what he wanted, so he had to leave behind a meaningful sentence and then dashed into the passageway. Yi Chen sneered in his heart and continued to expel the cold air from his body. Swish, 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 in a short while, at least a dozen people had entered the passage. After a short while, Yi Chen opened his mouth and spat out a mouthful of cold air. His right hand tightened its grip on the hilt of his sword. He tapped the ground lightly and shot into the tunnel like an arrow leaving the bow. In the deep tunnel, the wooden machete men jumped out one by one, slashing at anyone they saw. The dozen people running in front of Yi Chen had no choice but to slow down, lest they were eliminated at the last moment. Damn, that person behind us is so fast. The person at the back saw that Yi Chen could ignore the attacks of the wooden swordsman and always escape from danger at the critical moment. He could not help but exclaim, "Ah!" Just as he finished his words, he was slashed to the ground by a wooden machete man. He regretted that he did not pay attention. Yi Chen flew over from above and cut down the incoming wooden blade with one sword strike. Then he narrowly passed between two wooden machete men. His timing was perfect. As for the reason why Yi Chen could be so calm, it was all because of his powerful soul power. He did not need to use his eyes to sense everything within 5 meters around him. Moreover, after precise calculations, he could quickly choose the best route, which could save him a lot of time. Overtake 5 people. Overtake 10 people. Overtake 13 people. Yi Chen finally returned to the 3rd place, leaving the 4th place far behind. The exit of the Mu Rin alley was actually in the same direction as the entrance. In other words, all the challengers had taken a big detour inside. It was hard to imagine how big the so-called Mu Rin alley was. Although they could see the exit, it did not mean that they had succeeded. At the exit stood a slender and short wooden machete man. Its whole body was made from hundreds of pieces of dark red wood. It held a slender long blade in its hand. It did not seem to have any life force, but it was emitting a terrifying magical power. Bada, bada. The wooden machete men rushed towards Yi Chen. It was getting faster and faster. When it was 5 steps away, it waved its blade. Chin. Yi Chen felt like his great steel sword was about to fly out of his hand. He was shocked at the wooden macheteman's power. The first blade was blocked, but the wooden macheteman's second blade followed. It did not have any changes, only speed and ruthlessness. Find an opening. Yi Chen calmed himself down and shook his great steel sword. Like a mudfish, he stabbed the wooden macheteman's elbow joint at a weird angle. Although he did not manage to break his opponent's elbow, he managed to create a flaw in its movement. Thus, Yi Chen hurriedly threw a punch at its chest. Boom! The wooden machete man was blown away. He had succeeded. Outside the exit, Master Lin looked at Yi Chen with surprise. He smiled and said, "Congratulations on getting the 3rd place. Here are 3 windy dew pellets. As for the high-rank mortal realm martial skills and martial arts, you will have to go to the Pavilion of Martial Arts to pick them yourself. This is the tag for the 2nd floor of the Pavilion of Martial Arts. It can only be used once." Putting away the pellets and the tag, Yi Chen let out a sigh of relief. It was not easy for him to get the 3rd place. Wu Zongming walked over with a smile on his face, a high-rank mortal realm martial art and not having 1 or 2 completely different levels. "I am afraid that you will catch up with me in the future." Yi Chen blocked a punch from Zhang Haoren with his mortal realm stage 6 power. His martial arts were not that high, which made Wu Zongming very curious about him. He wanted to make friends with him. After all, 1 more friend was better than 1 more enemy. Yi Chen said modestly, "You flatter me. If it were not for you, I would not even be able to stand here. Let's not talk about this. We should talk more in the future." "Of course." "Oh right, you need to be careful of Zhang Haoren. Although he could not do anything to me, he might come after you. You should be careful." Yi Chen nodded and looked towards Zhang Haoren's direction. Zhang Haoren's face was very pale. This time, he had suffered a huge loss. Not only did he not win against Wu Zongming, he did not even keep his promise to his cousin. Luckily, he got the 1st place with his inch travel steps, otherwise, he would have been vomiting blood. As for Yi Chen, he did not care too much about Zhang Haoren. With a high-rank mortal realm martial art, he was confident that he could increase his power to the next level in a short period of time. If he had a few more months, he would have trained his chi to the 7th or 8th stage, and trained his martial art to the highest level. By then, it would not be impossible for him to fight against Zhang Haoren. Of course, Zhang Haoren's Tiger Roar Dragon Fist was a threat. It was quite hard to deal with, and could be considered as one of the best top-rank mortal realm martial arts. However, Yi Chen was not weak either. With the lone peak of 13 swords, with this unique sword art, Yi Chen had nothing to fear. Chapter 18. After a night's rest, the next morning, Yi Chen once again came to the Pavilion of Martial Skills. The Pavilion Master knew most of the inner disciples and all of the core disciples, but the outer disciples only knew a few people, such as Zhang Haoren and Wu Zongming. But strangely, the moment Yi Chen entered the pavilion, he recognized him and smiled at him. Yi Chen felt strange, but still said politely, "Greetings, Master." The pavilion guardian elder nodded and said, "As a senior, it's not a good thing to have too many martial skills. You should know what I mean." Yi Chen knew what he was thinking. He smiled bitterly, "Master, I am going to the 2nd floor, here is my token." Yi Chen said as he handed the token to the elder. "Token? What? You got the 3rd place in the Murin gang." The pavilion master's face was full of surprise, he could not help but ask. Yes. The pavilion master hesitated. You really mastered the lone peak of 13 swords? Seeing Yi Chen nodding, the pavilion master still could not believe it, but he had to believe it. Getting the third place with only an incomplete lone peak of 13 swords was too easy. After all, Yi Chen was only at the mid-mortal realm stage 6. Although he was the pavilion master, he could not ask too much. He reminded, those who can go to the second floor are all inner disciples and core disciples. They will more or less show their arrogance in front of you, an outer disciple, so remember not to mess with them. Also, you are not an official inner disciple, so you have to come down in 15 minutes, so you need to pick a martial skill as soon as possible. I know. Yi Chen understood this. Although inner disciples and outer disciples were both disciples, their positions were completely different, and if he had a conflict with an inner disciple, he would be the one to suffer. As for picking a martial skill within 15 minutes, it was to prevent outer disciples from secretly memorizing other martial skills. The staircase was deep on the left. Yi Chen walked over with a calm expression. As soon as he went upstairs, Yi Chen felt an invisible pressure on his face. Looking around, there were about a dozen people on the second floor. Some of them were reading the secret manuals seriously, some were chatting in low voices, and some were holding a few secret manuals and making a choice. Among these people, the oldest was no more than 20 years old, and the youngest was about the same age as Yi Chen. All of them had an unfathomable temperament. They were inner disciples. The inner disciple who was closest to Yi Chen turned his head out of habit with a hint of doubt on his face. Then he seemed to have thought of something and muttered, I almost forgot, yesterday was the Mu Ren Gang Challenge, this person should be in the top 10. After muttering to himself, he turned his attention back to the secret manual and stopped paying attention to Yi Chen. Taking a few steps forward, Yi Chen looked around and realized that the layout was similar to the first floor, but it was more classical and elegant. The bookshelves were not made of normal wood, but were made of valuable sandalwood. The aroma coming from the sandalwood was rich, and it had the effect of calming one's soul. The bookshelves were divided into 5 layers. The bottom 3 layers were filled with high-rank Mortal Realm manuals, and the top 2 layers were filled with top-rank Mortal Realm manuals. There were 3 to 5 manuals on each layer, and at most 7 manuals. On the side of each bookshelf, there were labels, such as Training Art Type, Auxiliary Art Type, Movement Art Type, Attack Art Type, Defense Art Type, and so on. Without further ado, Yi Chen only had 15 minutes to make a choice. First, he went to the section with the martial skill manuals. Yi Chen randomly picked up a manual, flipped through the title page, then put it down. Then he picked up another one and put it down. Out of the dozens of manuals, there were only 9 that caught his eye. They were Burning Fist, Attack Art; Inch Travel Steps, a movement skill; 8 Steps Chasing Cicada, movement art; Yuan Chi Force, defense art; Formless Counterattack, defense art; Golden Swallow Art, movement art; 4 Parts Fist, attack art; Sword Draw Art, attack art; Deadwood Seal, attack art. These 9 martial skills might not be the best high-rank Mortal Realm martial skills, but they were definitely the most suitable for Yi Chen. Therefore, even he was a bit tempted by them. The Burning Fist was Wu Zongming's main martial skill, its power did not need to be mentioned. Once he mastered it, he would be able to create a fire power, which would be able to deliver a fatal attack to the enemy. The inch steps was the footwork that Zhang Haoran trained. It was like shrinking the ground into an inch. It was very scary and practical. The 8 Steps Chasing Cicada focused on the explosive power within 8 steps, which was enough to increase one's speed by 50% or more. No matter how fast the enemy was, they would not be able to escape from the palm of their hands. It was the best choice for chasing and killing enemies. The Yuan Chi Force was a bit more mysterious. It needed the help of Qi to cultivate a special kind of Yuan Chi. This Yuan Chi was just like Qi. It would be stored inside the body, and when it was used, it would automatically appear and protect the body. However, every time it was used, it would be used up. The first 4 were already the best. If there were no other choices, Yi Chen would definitely choose one of them. However, with the last 5, Yi Chen had no choice but to give up on them. The non-phase counter-attack was a defensive martial skill, but it was also an offensive martial skill. It focused on being able to predict the enemy's movements and counter-attack with defense. If the enemy was strong, I would be strong. If the enemy was weak, I would be weak. If the enemy did not move, I would not move. It was very hard to deal with. If one mastered it, he would be able to stand on the ground. The Golden Swallow art was a movement skill. It allowed the user to walk on water without a problem. When mastered, the user would be able to fly more than 100 meters in the air, as light as a swallow flying on grass. When he saw the introduction of the fragmented fist art, Yi Chen could not help but let out a sound of surprise. This martial skill was so fierce and overbearing, it did not even have a hint of softness in it. With one punch, the target would definitely be torn into pieces. It could be said that it had reached the pinnacle of hardness. It was quite extreme. Hardness cannot last long. Tai Chi is about yin and yang, hard and soft. Not to mention this martial skill, I'm afraid that if I can't defeat the enemy, I will be defeated by the enemy. It is too extreme. Yi Chen shook his head and gave up on the fragmented fist art. As for the sword drawing art, it was about the explosive power produced in the moment of drawing the sword. The strength and speed of the sword drawing art was much greater than the direct swing of the sword. Therefore, the first move was to hit the enemy first, and to kill the enemy in one move. Yi Chen practiced the lone peak of 13 swords. If he could combine it with the sword drawing art, then from drawing the sword to putting it back, there would be no flaws to speak of, unless the opponent's strength or martial skills were much higher than his. However, there were many things that were not the case. The sword drawing art was not bad, but it was not a wise choice for those who practiced sword arts. It was the same as the fragmented fist art, it was too extreme. The first move was to injure the enemy, and if it could not injure the enemy, the spirit would be wasted. Therefore, the sword drawing art was not suitable for swordsmen, it was suitable for assassins. The last martial skill was the Deadwood Seal. This martial skill was good at hiding its aura. When it attacked, it was silent. Often, the enemy would not even notice it and would be killed directly. In addition, the name of the Deadwood Seal seemed lifeless, but in fact, it contained infinite vitality. Before the attack hit the target, the essence chi would be tightly locked. Only at the moment when the attack hit the target, would it be like an old tree in the spring, radiating a terrible vitality and explosive power. Chapter 19. Which one should he choose? Yi Chen thought for a while and quickly made his choice. He reached out his hand and picked up the Golden Swallow art. There was a reason for him to make such a choice. Compared to offensive and defensive martial techniques, movement martial techniques were more suitable for survival. It must be known that in the world of martial techniques, there was nothing that could not be overcome, only speed could not be overcome. When one's speed reached a certain realm, before the enemy could even hit you, you would already be able to injure them. This was more powerful than any offensive martial technique. Taking a step back, even if you could not defeat your opponent, you could still use your extraordinary speed to escape. Defensive martial skills could protect you for a while, but it could not protect you forever. As for the inch swim steps, the 8 steps chasing cicada, and the Golden Swallow art, Yi Chen didn't really care why he chose the Golden Swallow art, it was just a feeling. Now that he had chosen the martial skill, it was time for the martial skill. What do you mean? I had my eyes on this iron cloak technique first. At this moment, a commotion broke out from the third bookshelf. Yi Chen immediately knew who it was. He curiously walked out from between the shelves and looked towards the direction of the noise. 10 steps away stood 2 people. One of them was handsome, no more than 13 years old. He looked young and immature. He must be Zhang Haoran, who had just arrived. The other was about 17 or 18 years old. He was wearing a yellow robe and had a strong body. His arms were even thicker than Zhang Haoran's. He had a square face and a square chin. His eyes were long and narrow, giving off a cold light. He looked like a combination of a tiger and a poisonous snake. The two were fighting over a high-rank Mortal Realm defensive skill called Iron Cloak Art. This skill was not of a high rank, but it was very practical and effective. Its popularity was no less than a top-rank Mortal Realm skill. Zhang Haoran wanted to take it back and train it to make up for his low defense, but he didn't expect that it would be snatched away by Zhang Haoran. Zhang Haoran even glared at Zhang Haoran, telling him to get out of here. Zhang Haoran couldn't take it anymore. He was furious. The yellow-clothed youth chuckled and said, "An outer sect disciple dares to be so arrogant. Scram home and drink milk." Zhang Haoran's face darkened. "Don't think I don't know who you are." Huang Bingwen, 17 years old, early condensing reality realm, the second young master of the mayor's mansion. "It's good that you know," Huang Bingwen said proudly. "Pooh. 17 years old and only at the early condensing reality realm, and you still have the nerve to come out and embarrass yourself? What right do you have to be so arrogant in front of me?" Zhang Haoran's words were shocking. As soon as this was said, the onlookers started to discuss. This person is Zhang Haoran, right? No wonder he dared to go against Huang Bingwen. However, his tone was sharp enough. "I'm afraid he will offend many people. Peak of Mortal Realm Stage 10 at the age of 13. If he could break through to the condensing reality realm by the end of the year, he would be one of the top 5 geniuses in the Sky Cloud Martial School. Looks like Huang Bingwen has kicked an iron plate. I heard that Zhang Haoran is favored by the inner disciple Elder Lu. He even made an exception and allowed Zhang Haoran to learn the top-rank Mortal Realm martial skill, Tiger Dragon Fist." Huang Bingwen's face darkened as he heard the discussions around him. He said in a creepy tone, "Little brat, you have guts. You only dare to be so arrogant because of your connections? What a joke. I, Zhang Haoran, need my connections. Do you dare to make a bet?" 2 months later in the Martial Arts Plaza, the loser has to apologize to the winner. Zhang Haoran threw out another bomb. Huang Bingwen and the other inner disciples were all shocked. What kind of joke was this? An outer disciple challenging an inner disciple? All right. As you wish, I, Huang Bingwen, will accept. Although fighting with an outer disciple would be beneath his dignity, as long as he could beat his opponent easily, people would think that Zhang Haoran was too arrogant and would not blame him. Shoo! Grabbing the Iron Cloak skill manual from Huang Bingwen's hand, Zhang Haoran walked down the stairs without looking back. Huang Bingwen's face turned green. He had nowhere to vent his anger. When he realized there was another outer disciple on the second floor, he yelled, "What the fuck are you looking at?" Yi Chen was shocked. He did not expect to become Huang Bingwen's punching bag. Annoyed, he said coldly, "My eyes are on my face. Do I need your permission to look anywhere?" As soon as he said this, the surrounding inner disciples were shocked again. What was going on? This year's outer disciples were getting more and more arrogant. The first one was still okay, as he was at least at the peak of Mortal Realm Stage 10, and he had the support of an inner master. But this guy in front of them was only at the mid-Mortal Realm Stage 6. He was not famous, and no one knew him. But his tone was not any lower than Zhang Haoran's. Huang Bingwen was furious. His clothes were fluttering even though there was no wind. A dark brown light shone out of his body. It seemed like he was about to attack. "Huang Bingwen, what are you doing? Do you know what this place is?" One of the inner disciples with black hair scolded. Huang Bingwen shivered. He had almost forgotten that this was the pavilion of martial skills. Fighting was forbidden here. Once caught, he would be severely punished, and would not be allowed to enter the pavilion for half a year. Withdrawing his Jinqi, Huang Bingwen looked at Yi Chen fiercely and threatened, "Once we leave the pavilion of martial skills, I will teach you a lesson." Yi Chen frowned. This guy was like a mad dog. He would bite anyone he saw. But Yi Chen's cultivation was still low, so he would not be able to beat him. If he did not think of a way, he would definitely be at a disadvantage. After making up his mind, Yi Chen raised his head, "I will also make a bet with you. 2 months later, we will fight in the Martial Plaza. Whoever loses has to apologize to the other. Do you dare? Like a bolt from the blue, Huang Bingwen himself was shocked. Huh. As if he had heard the funniest joke, Huang Bingwen pointed at Yi Chen and said, You? Do you think you can beat me in 2 months? You must be dreaming. What? You don't dare? Damn, I know you are trying to provoke me. Why would I not dare? In 2 months, I will teach you and that Zhang Haoran a lesson together. Huang Bingwen was still a bit patient. He knew that the more he suppressed his desire, the better it would be when he exploded. Anyway, 2 months would pass very quickly. If that is the case, then I will not disturb you anymore. 15 minutes were almost up, and Yi Chen still had to choose a martial art. He did not dare to waste any more time. Looking at Yi Chen's back, the other inner disciples showed their interest. They were hoping that 2 months would pass quickly. Who knows, they might be able to see something interesting. Next to the bookshelf of martial arts, Yi Chen was seriously making his choice. 6 Sun Art, Extreme Yang. Dead Tree Art, Restrained Qi, Silent and Silent. Flowing Cloud Art, Fast Qi Circulation, Fire Force. Little Star Skill, Using Small to Win Big, Pure Inner Qi. There were not many martial arts, but it was enough to dazzle Yi Chen. There were all kinds of martial arts, and there were even some that were not so popular. Time passed by slowly. Yi Chen was a bit anxious. If he did not hurry, time would be up. Annoyed, he randomly picked up a martial art manual. Yi Chen's eyes were fixed on it. Under this martial art manual, there was another martial art manual. It seemed like it was accidentally left there. On the cover of the martial art manual, there were 3 words written in black, Pure Yuan Art. Chapter 20. Picking up the Pure Yuan Art manual, Yi Chen opened it to the first page. Pure Yuan Art, Qi First Qi Revolution, 100 Rivers Flow, Second Qi Revolution, Third Qi Refine the Body, Fourth Qi Revolution, Fifth Qi Revolution, Sixth Qi Integration. Alright, that's it. With only one glance, Yi Chen had already made up his mind. Training the Pure Yuan Art to the 5th twist, it would have the effect of combining the 6 elements into one. What was the meaning of combining the 6 elements into one? Combining the spirit, qi, soul, hands, eyes, and body into one. Combining the 6 elements into one, achieving the combination of the spirit and qi, the soul and qi, the hands and eyes, and the eyes and body. Perhaps its attack and defense were not as good as other arts, but the purity of its qi was definitely one of the best. There were not many mortal realm arts that could achieve spirit, qi, soul, hands, eyes, and body. Suddenly, an inner disciple appeared next to Yi Chen. He was reading a manual. Noticing Yi Chen's gaze, he smiled politely, but when he saw the manual in Yi Chen's hand, he was shocked. Pure Yuan Art? Yi Chen nodded, yes. The disciple hesitated for a second, then said, the Pure Yuan Art is indeed a rare art, but in the past 100 years, no one in the Sky Cloud Martial School has reached the 5th Qi Revolution, and only a few have reached the 4th Qi Revolution. I suggest you choose another art, otherwise it would be a waste of time. Since this was the case, Yi Chen was more than happy that no one else was training the same art as him. As for the disciple saying that no one in the past 100 years had reached the 5th Qi Revolution, it was only because of mortal realm warriors. Once they reached the condensing reality realm, they would be qualified to receive a top-rank mortal realm art. Therefore, most people would give up on their original art. After all, a high-rank mortal realm art would not be as good as a top-rank mortal realm art. My time is up. After saying goodbye, Yi Chen walked downstairs with the 2 manuals. The disciple shook his head. He warned Yi Chen out of kindness. As for whether Yi Chen would listen or not, it was none of his business. It was hard to say if he would still remember Yi Chen in the future. On the bed, Yi Chen sat cross-legged with his eyes closed. His hands formed a series of hand seals, one above and one below, at the position of his dantian. Along with the rise and fall of his breathing, strands of heaven and earth yuan qi gathered from the surroundings, forming a whirlpool that quickly seeped into his body, circulating ceaselessly in his meridians. If someone could see through Yi Chen's body, they would discover that other than the cyclone in the center of Yi Chen's dantian, there was another cyclone forming slowly and forcefully. Phew! Slowly letting out a mouthful of turbid air, Yi Chen opened his eyes. An extremely obscure light flashed across his pupils. 6 hours to cultivate to the first revolution. It seems that I have underestimated my own ability. Yi Chen was very satisfied with his efficiency. For a moment, he felt proud of himself. However, this was just the beginning. The pure yuan art had a total of 5 revolutions, and each revolution was extremely difficult. It would take at least a few days to reach the second revolution, and the third revolution would take a few times longer. The fourth revolution would take another few times longer, and the fifth revolution would not be as simple as just doubling the time. Although Yi Chen already had a preliminary understanding of his own potential, he was still a little surprised that he had reached the second revolution on the third day. Now, the second cyclone in his body was already 1/10 the size of the cyclone from the Cloud Chi spell, and it was even purer and more refined. It was like a transparent crystal, without any impurities. On the 6th day, all the meridians in Yi Chen's body had been cleared. The pure Yuan Qi inner Qi continued to circulate without any hindrance. Bit by bit, it trained his body, and extracted a very pure Yuan Qi from his bones and blood, merging it into his body and strengthening the cyclone. On the 7th day, the third revolution of the pure Yuan art was completed. Now, the second cyclone was already 1/5 the size of the first cyclone. Not only was it incredibly pure, but it was also spinning at an extremely fast speed. It was like a powerful gear, sucking in and spitting out a huge amount of Yuan Qi and the inner Qi from the first cyclone. Yi Chen thought to himself, the pure Yuan Qi inner Qi is at least twice as pure as the Cloud Qi spell inner Qi. It's time to refine it. Otherwise, it would be very inconvenient to have 2 types of inner Qi in my body, and it would be hard for me to reach the 4th or even the 5th revolution of the pure Yuan art. Yi Chen put all his effort into activating the pure Yuan art, and started to attack the Cloud Qi inner Qi. When the Cloud Qi inner Qi was attacked, it tried its best to fight back. It used its advantage in numbers to set up layers of defense, blocking the pure Yuan Qi inner Qi. However, the inner Qi of the pure Yuan art was too pure. It was like a sharp knife, breaking through layer by layer. Every time it reached a place, it would refine the layer of defense formed by the inner Qi and strengthen itself. Then, like a rolling snowball, the more it attacked, the stronger it became. Feeling the dominance of the pure Yuan Qi inner Qi, Yi Chen sighed in his heart. Quality was always more reliable than quantity. The Cloud Qi inner Qi was 5 times more than the pure Yuan Qi inner Qi inner Qi inner Qi, but it still couldn't compete with the pure Yuan Qi inner Qi inner Qi. Time passed by slowly. When there was only 1/5 of the Cloud Qi inner Qi left, the Qi whirlpool suddenly collapsed and scattered. It became a disorganized mess. How could it still be a threat to the pure Yuan Qi inner Qi? Pop! As the Cloud Qi inner Qi was completely refined, Yi Chen's dantian swelled up, and his cultivation broke through from the mid-mortal realm stage 6 to the late mortal realm stage 6. Letting out a mouthful of mist-shaped Qi arrow, he stretched his body. All of his bones started to make cracking noises, which sounded like they were connected together. Only 10 days of hard work and I have reached the late mortal realm stage 6, no wonder it is a high-rank mortal realm martial art. Training a martial art was too important for a warrior. When both warriors had the same talent, the warrior who trained a high-level martial art would always have a higher achievement than the warrior who trained a low-level martial art. This was an unchanging truth. Yi Chen had trained the pure Yuan art to the 3rd Qi coil in 10 days, and had already accumulated a lot of Qi. Now that he had refined the Cloud Qi inner Qi, it would be strange if his cultivation did not increase. Just when Yi Chen was full of confidence, a group of guests arrived at the foot of the Sky Cloud Martial School's mountain. There were 2 men and 2 women. The leading man was an old man in his 60s, with a withered face and a cold expression. He was wearing a long green robe and had an emerald tag hanging on his waist. Next to the old man were 3 young men and women. The young man was about 17 or 18 years old, with a cold face and sharp facial features. On the left of the cold-looking young man was a pretty girl who was about 14 or 15 years old, wearing a green dress with a long sword hanging on her waist. On the right was another girl who looked a little older than the pretty girl. She had a beautiful face and a proud temperament, like an orchid in a valley, or a peony among flowers. The two different temperaments mixed together made her look even more outstanding. The pretty girl said to the beautiful girl, "Sister Shui Yan, no matter what you do, I will respect your decision." "Yi Xian, I am not a picky person. Yi Chen's mother and my mother are both outer elders of the Rudra martial school, they are like sisters. She used to take care of me when I was little and treated me very well. However, when it comes to marriage, I don't want anyone else to make the decision for me, and I don't want my future husband to live under my shadow." The beautiful girl spoke clearly, which made her look even more attractive. The pretty girl Yi Xian nodded and stopped talking. At this moment the indifferent old man said, "Don't worry, our Emerald Martial Palace is the #1 martial institution in the Windy Nation. We will not force you to compromise. With your talent, you will definitely become an inner elder in the future. Why would you waste your time on worldly affairs?" Chapter 21. Who are you? At the foot of the mountain, 4 guarding disciples stopped a group of people. The cold-looking young man took a step forward and said loudly, "We are from the Emerald Martial Palace. This is the inner master Mu Fengyuan. Let us in." Emerald Martial Palace, inner master. The guarding disciple was shocked. In the Windy Nation, the disciples of the Emerald Martial Palace could do whatever they wanted when they were outside, not to mention that there was an inner elder, who was basically an overlord. Even the emperor had to treat him with respect. "This way, please." The guarding disciple at the front smiled and winked at the people next to him, "Go inform the master." Soon, the Emerald Martial Palace had shocked the entire Sky Cloud Martial School. In the reception hall of the Sky Cloud Martial School, other than the few inner masters sitting on the left side, there was a middle-aged man sitting on the main seat. He was about 40 years old, with a huge frame and a pair of tiger paws on the armrests of the chair. He looked like a tiger or a dragon. He was indeed the most powerful warrior in the Sky Cloud Martial School, the leader of the school, Luo Xinglie. Normally, if it was a normal inner master, Luo Xinglie would not have to greet him personally. He could have asked the headmaster or the second master to do so. However, this time, Mu Fengyuan was not simple. He was one of the top 10 inner masters in the Emerald Martial Palace. He was at the late clasping Yuan realm, which was not much weaker than Luo Xinglie. The headmaster, the second master and the third master might not be weaker than him, but it would be hard for them to suppress him. For the sake of his reputation, Luo Xinglie did not want to see a situation where the host was weaker than the guest. Therefore, he had to come personally, because he was the only one in the Sky Cloud Martial School who was obviously more powerful than him. On the right side, Mu Fengyuan and the 3 young men were sitting in order. "Ha, Master Mu, what brings you here? Sorry for not greeting you earlier." Luo Xinglie laughed brightly first, then looked at Mu Fengyuan. Mu Fengyuan smiled lightly, put down the teacup in his hand and said, "I hope Leader Luo will not blame us for coming without an invitation." The headmaster of the Sky Cloud Martial School was also an old man, slightly chubby. "Of course not. Our leader heard that you are here, so he came out to greet you personally." Luo Xinglie nodded, then changed the topic. "I wonder what Master Mu is here for. You can't be here just for a visit, right?" "Of course I am here for a visit, and also to take care of my junior's personal affairs." "A junior's private matter? What is it?" Luo Xinglie was a bit surprised. Mu Fengyuan cleared his throat and asked, "I wonder if there is an outer sect disciple named Yi Chen. This is his sister Yi Xian, and the other one is also related to him." As soon as she said that, Luo Xinglie and a few of the Sky Cloud Martial School's inner elders looked at Yi Xian and the beautiful girl and couldn't help but compliment them. The 2 women's beauty was secondary. What caught everyone's attention was their cultivation. Yi Xian looked like she was not even 15 years old yet, but she had already reached the early condensing reality realm, Her Zhenqi was a bit messy, so she should have just reached the condensing reality realm not long ago. In terms of talent, the Sky Cloud Martial School did not lack geniuses like her, but there were not many of them, not to mention she was a girl. The other beautiful girl was a bit scary. She was only slightly older than Yi Xian, but she had already reached the peak of the mid-condensing reality realm. If she was given a few more months, she would definitely be able to reach the late condensing reality realm. She was so talented that she could definitely be ranked in the top 3 in the Sky Cloud Martial School, maybe even higher. Luo Xinglie sighed quietly. The Emerald Martial Palace really had a lot of geniuses. Any one of them could compete with the most talented disciple in the Sky Cloud Martial School. No wonder they had always been the #1 martial institution in the Windy Nation. Even the North Snow Martial Academy was slightly weaker than them. "Young lady, what is your name?" The head elder could not help but ask. The beautiful girl looked calm. "Greetings, head elder. I am Ji Xuan." "Ji Xuan, are you a disciple of the Ji family?" "Yes." Luo Xinglie laughed. "With a disciple like you, the Ji family's position as one of the top 8 families will be even more stable. Congratulations." "Yeah." The other inner elders nodded in agreement. "Someone, bring Yi Chen in." Luo Xinglie did not know who Yi Chen was, but he was the leader of the martial institution, so he only needed to say one word. The cold-looking young man, who had been silent the whole time, got Mu Fengyuan's permission. He stood up and said, "Leader Luo and all the elders, Lu Wuxiang has a request. He hopes that before we take care of Sister Ji, he can have a fight with Child Hanshan of your martial institution." Luo Xinglie's face froze. "You mean my son, Luo Hanshan?" Mu Fengyuan smiled and said, "Lu Wuxiang is one of the top 4 core disciples of our martial institution. Fighting with Child Hanshan should not be a disgrace to him, right?" "Of course, but my son is not feeling well. He might not be able to accept this." Luo Xinglie seemed to be troubled. Looking closely, one could see that there was a hint of sadness hidden deep in his eyes. Lu Wuxiang was a bit disappointed. He still wanted to say something, but was stopped by Mu Fengyuan. "Dad!" Suddenly, a young man in blue appeared outside the guest hall. Luo Xinglie looked over in surprise. "Hanshan, why are you here?" The young man in blue looked at Lu Wuxiang and said, "Dad, just accept his request. I also want to see the power of the absolute palm Lu Wuxiang. But, don't worry, I know what I'm doing." The young man in blue was indeed Child Hanshan, Luo Hanshan, the son of Luo Xinglie. He was ranked 2nd among the core disciples, just below the hidden fragrance sword, Zhu Mei. Lu Wuxiang stood up. 2 years ago, the 4 most powerful young warriors of the Windy Nation were named as the top 4 child. They were our head disciple, Child Emerald, Child North Snow from the North Snow Martial Academy, Child Duanmu from the Duanmu family, and Child Hanshan from the Sky Cloud Martial School. Right now, my head disciple and Child North Snow are trying to break through to the Clasping Yuan realm, but you have lost the title of the #1 core disciple in the Sky Cloud Martial School. It is really hard to understand." Luo Hanshan responded calmly, "Zhu Mei beat me fairly and honestly. I think you all know about her power. Hidden fragrance sword Zhu Mei is indeed very powerful, but to be honest, she is much weaker than my head disciple. Maybe your understanding of my head disciple is still the same as 2 years ago, then you are completely wrong." Luo Hanshan didn't want to argue with the young man. He said, "Let's cut the crap. How are we going to compete?" His opponent was one of the top 4 core disciples of the Emerald Martial Palace, and was called the Absolute Palm by the young generation of the Windy Nation. His Zhenqi and palm art were extremely powerful. It was said that he was only slightly weaker than the Emerald Young Master. "Very simple, 3 palm attacks will do. It is not time for the real battle yet." "As you wish, let's do it right here." On the stage, Luo Xinglie, Mu Fengyuan and all the inner elders of the Sky Cloud Martial School were all staring at the two without blinking. It was rare to see a battle between the most powerful young warriors, especially Luo Xinglie. He couldn't hide the nervousness on his face anymore. He was both worried and expectant at the same time. Ji Xuan and Yi Xian's eyes were even brighter than before. To be able to witness the battle between their brother disciple Lu Wuxiang and child Hans Han, this trip was definitely worth it. Please. Luo Hans Han took a few steps forward, one of his hands was held behind his back, while the other hand was slightly raised. Lu Wuxiang walked over with big steps. I hope you will try your best, otherwise you won't be able to compete with me. Of course. Chapter 22. The two stood 10 steps away from each other and started accumulating their power. After a few breaths, Lu Hanshan's face was covered in a dense purple mist. No one knew what kind of martial art he had been practicing. He let out a deep growl, then suddenly rushed towards Lu Wuxiang while launching a palm attack with his right hand. Before he arrived, his power had already arrived, and a light ripple appeared in the air. Lu Wuxiang had a serious look on his face. He stomped on the ground and cracked it, then darted out like a bolt of lightning and launched a palm attack against Lu Hanshan's. Boom! A transparent stream of air spread out in all directions, sending the tables and chairs flying. At the same time, the two figures separated and shot backwards. Yi Xian was shocked. She didn't expect that a fight between two late condensing reality realm martial artists would be so powerful. Even the heavy red sandalwood tables and chairs were blown away by the force of the impact. Ji Xuan was only one step away from the late condensing reality realm, so she wasn't too surprised. Of course, she knew that she was no match for these two, she wouldn't even be able to take one palm attack from them. The two of them tried their best to control their bodies, then simultaneously moved towards the middle of each other. Their bodies were releasing an intense fighting intent that could even be sensed from a long distance away. I don't think we need the third palm attack. If this is all you've got, the second palm attack will be enough to decide the winner. A cyan-colored stream of air rose up from Lu Wuxiang's body. This stream of air was extremely sharp, the air that came into contact with it was twisted and cut apart, making a sizzling sound. Blue murderous chi. Lu Hanshan said in a low voice, the look on his face turned even more serious. Luo Xinglia, who was sitting in the main seat, was even more nervous than Lu Hanshan. This blue murderous chi was one of the most powerful martial arts of the Emerald Martial Palace. It was a low-rank Earth Realm martial art, and had a very obvious effect on breaking the internal Jin chi. It was only taught to the most core disciples, even ordinary core disciples couldn't do it. Judging from the power that was showing from Lu Wuxiang's body, he had obviously reached the 8th level of the blue murderous chi. How amazing! But how would Luo Hanshan deal with it? Lu Wuxiang said blandly, I don't think there's any need to continue. Not necessarily. Lu Hanshan took a deep breath. Suddenly, a blue vein bulged on his forehead, then a second one, a third one. Something amazing happened. His eyes turned from black to red, then from red to purple, and at last, two purple streams of air came out of his eyes, drifting out. Purple Eye Ice Heart, the 8th level of the extreme purple art. Good job! Luo Xinglia was shocked at first, but then he was overjoyed. The other inner elders of the Sky Cloud Martial School all showed smiles on their faces. The extreme purple art was a low-rank Earth Realm martial art, divided into 9 levels, and each level was more difficult than the previous one. Before, they all thought that Luo Hanshan wouldn't be able to rival Lu Wuxiang, but now, they didn't have to worry anymore. Seeing Luo Xinglia's excited face, Luo Hanshan was also very happy. Thinking about what he had been through in the past 2 years, he had been stuck at the 6th level of the purple extreme art, unable to make any progress. After that, he had lost to the current number 1 disciple, Zhu Mei, in the core disciple exam. Everyone thought that he had reached the end of his potential, and that he might not even be able to keep the number 2 disciple in the future. Now, no one would suspect him. Ha! This time, it was Lu Wuxiang who attacked first. His palm, which was wrapped in cyan airflow, was violently thrown out, as if it was going to destroy the entire hull. Luo Hanshan remained calm and collected. He threw out his palm to meet the incoming attack. Different from Lu Wuxiang, when his palm attack was thrown out, it didn't even make a swooshing sound. However, wherever his palms passed through, the air suddenly started to vibrate intensely, as if it was boiling water. Two palms collided. A few cracks appeared on the ground, and the violent power spread out in a spiral shape, shattering all the tables and chairs in the surroundings, as if they had been cut into pieces by thousands of knives. Facing the incoming sharp power, Ji Xuan released her qi and threw out her palm in front of her body. Crackle! The incoming power was blocked by Ji Xuan's palm, causing a series of explosive noises, which even made Ji Xuan's face slightly pale. Fortunately, it was only the aftermath of the attack, and the power had already been reduced by 70 to 80%. Yi Xian, who was sitting next to Ji Xuan, exclaimed, "If it weren't for you, Sister Xuan, I would have been seriously injured by the aftermath of that attack." Ji Xuan said, "The Cyan Great Murderous Qi is especially good at breaking internal Jin Qi, combined with the pure purple extreme arts Jin Qi, its destructive power is extraordinary." Except for Ji Xuan and Yi Xian, the rest of the people in the hall turned a blind eye to that fierce qi, as if there was an invisible wall in front of them, which had absorbed all of the power. Outside the hall, Yi Chen's heart was beating fast. Is this what a late condensing reality realm fight looks like? It's so intense, it's not any weaker than the top martial artists in the 21st century TV series. I wonder when I will be able to reach this level. Tap, tap, tap. Along with the explosion of qi, Lu Wuxiang's body swayed, and he took 13 steps back in a row, each step leaving a deep footprint on the ground. Luo Hanshan took 15 steps back, and on the last step, he even broke the bricks under his feet, sinking 3 inches deep into the ground. In the end, Lu Wuxiang was slightly better than Luo Hanshan. Throwing a complicated glance at Luo Hanshan, Lu Wuxiang said, "I am good at palm arts after all, so this time we are even, what do you think?" Luo Hanshan said, "Let's start the third palm attack." "No need, I have already understood your power. Although you are not as powerful as my head disciple, you have finally regained your Prince Hanshan's power." Lu Wuxiang shook his head. Luo Xinglie saw that the fight was over, so he laughed out loud and said, "The disciples of the Emerald Martial Palace are indeed worthy of their reputation, young heroes." Mu Fengyuan said, "Sorry, Leader Luo." "Hee, it's nothing." Luo Xinglie was very happy. His son Luo Hanshan had returned to the top of the martial geniuses, and he, as a father, was also proud. He grinned and said, "Hanshan, find a seat and sit down." Luo Hanshan nodded and said to Lu Wuxiang, "Tell Pei Wushuang that I, Luo Hanshan, am back." "I will." Both of them found their seats and sat down without saying anything else. Outside the hall, Yi Chen came back to his senses. He bowed to Luo Xinglie and said, "Leader, elders, disciple Yi Chen greets all of you." The head elder said blandly, "Come in." Walking into the hall, Yi Chen saw Yi Xian, and Ji Xuan, who was sitting right next to her. He knew her as well. They had met a couple of years ago. She was no longer the little girl she used to be. It was just that the world had changed, and he had basically guessed why they were here. After all, their relationship was not good enough for them to visit each other yet. Luo Xinglie calmed himself down and said seriously, "Yi Chen, do you know these two?" "Yes." Yi Chen took a deep breath. "Since it is a private matter, then you can solve it in private. What do you think?" Luo Xinglie was not in the mood to care about the personal matters of the younger generation. They were not even core disciples. "Yes." Ji Xuan stood up. She said to Luo Xinglie and Mu Fengyuan, "Please allow me to talk to him in private." Luo Xinglie and Mu Fengyuan nodded. Walking in front of Yi Chen, Ji Xuan said blandly, "Let's go out and talk." Yi Chen did not say anything, he just followed her out of the hall. As for Yi Xian, she hesitated for a second, but after saying goodbye to everyone, she also followed. Chapter 23. Outside the hall was a plaza paved with white marble. A screen wall was erected on the plaza. It was 33 feet tall and 24 feet wide. It was extremely grand. Beside the screen wall, Ji Xuan looked Yi Chen up and down. After a long time, she said, I'm here because, Yi Chen interrupted her and said, I know. You know? Ji Xuan was a little surprised. In her impression, although he was not stupid, he was definitely not smart. But this time, he seemed to have changed. Yi Chen said self-deprecatingly, it can't be that you're here to see me. Ji Xuan shook her head, of course not. Regardless of whether you've guessed it or not, I have to tell you personally that it's impossible between the two of us. So you're here to discuss the annulment of the engagement. After all, if I don't agree, it will be very troublesome for you to resolve the engagement alone. At the very least, you will have to face the dissuasion of many elders, especially since you won't be able to face my mother. She treats you very well and is like a sister to your mother. If we both agree, those elders won't be able to say anything. Ji Xuan opened her mouth and found that she did not know what to say. This was different from what she had imagined. She had thought that he would be very angry. No matter what, it was humiliating to have the engagement annulled by the female side. She had already prepared a way to deal with this. That was to let him know the difference in strength between the two of them. The two of them were not compatible, and continuing to be entangled would only bring humiliation to themselves. But now, these countermeasures had become useless and she was caught unprepared. Taking a deep breath, Ji Xuan found that she had underestimated Yi Chen. At the same time, she felt a little sullen and said in a stiff tone, you're right, but there is one thing you must remember. Even if you don't agree, I will still annul the engagement. You should have heard of the saying, dragons don't cohabit with snakes. The two of us are not people of the same world. I still have a long way to go in the future, and the gap between us will only grow bigger. Dragons don't cohabit with snakes. Yi Chen chuckled and said, what a good metaphor. You think of yourself as a true dragon, and I as a little snake. However, it's too early for you to make a metaphor. It's not certain who is the true dragon. Moreover, even a little snake has the chance to transform into a dragon. Ji Xuan could not help but let out a cold smile. The other party was simply boasting shamelessly. Based on the current situation, it was obvious who was the real dragon and who was the little snake, but he actually said that it was uncertain who was the real dragon. Did he think that one day he could become a real dragon and soar through the heavens? Alright, I'm not interested in arguing with you about the established facts. I just want to ask you one thing, do you agree to break off the engagement? Yi Chen replied without hesitation, why wouldn't I agree? I agree to cancel the engagement. Yi Chen knew his potential very well. As long as he had enough time, reaching the condensing reality realm, clasping Yuan realm, or even the astral reaching realm would not be a problem for him. Why would he bother with a woman? Besides, even if he didn't agree, so what? She had even invited the inner master of the Emerald Martial Palace. If he didn't agree, he would only be humiliated. Now that he had agreed, he had turned from passive to active, and had kept his last bit of dignity. Of course, what she had given him today, he would definitely return it in the future. He wanted to let her know that whether or not she was a real dragon was not determined by words, but by actions. Both of them remained silent for a while. After a while, Ji Xuan slightly scratched the crystal ring on her left hand with the middle finger of her right hand. A dim light flashed, and a manual suddenly appeared in her hand. Yi Chen's pupils shrank. A storage ring. A storage ring was a legendary treasure for normal people, but it was a must-have item for high-level martial artists. The inside of the ring had its own space, and could store a huge amount of items, such as gold, pellets, herbs, clothes, weapons. They could all be stored inside, and it would be weightless. He didn't expect her to have a storage ring. Among the core disciples of the Sky Cloud Martial School, only 2 or 3 people had a storage ring. This is a top-rank Mortal Realm manual, Iron Bone Godly Palm. If you can learn a thing or two from it, you will be able to beat other martial artists at the same level. But don't worry, this is not a martial art from the Emerald Martial Palace. I got it from a Jianghu bandit that I killed. It will not be a threat to you. Consider it my compensation to you. Ji Xuan slightly raised her chin, as if she had just thrown out an ordinary item. I will take what I want myself. Yi Chen rejected without hesitation. What a joke, it was only a top-rank mortal realm manual, there was no need for him to sell his pride. Not to mention, if he accepted it, she would look down on him and think that he was a coward. Ji Xuan frowned, don't you understand? With your talent, I don't know when you will become an inner disciple. Yi Chen said coldly, you don't have to worry about canceling the engagement. I will do what I said. If there is nothing else, I will leave now. After saying that, Yi Chen turned around and walked towards the main hall. He needed to report to Luo Xinglia before he could leave. Ji Xuan was shocked, then she sneered. She thought that Yi Chen was doing it on purpose for her to see. Otherwise, why would he let go of a top-rank mortal realm manual? After all, a top-rank mortal realm manual was not easy to find. Unfortunately, Yi Chen was just wasting his time, she would never like him. On the way, Yi Xian stopped Yi Chen. Why are you so stubborn? Just take it. Why are you so angry? Yi Xian had a lot of power in the Yi family. Before, even Yi Chen did not dare to argue with her. There are so many manuals in the Sky Cloud Martial School, there is no need. Yi Xian shook her head and said, you have changed, you have become unreasonable. I know you are feeling humiliated, but to be honest, you and Sister Xuan are not a good match. Her future husband should be someone like the four childs, not a nobody like you. Of course, I am not belittling you, a nobody also has his own way of living, you are better at living a stable life. I am being unreasonable. Never mind, Yi Chen did not want to talk to these two arrogant women anymore. Sometimes, the more reasonable your words were, the more likely they would think that you were being calculative. If you were being unreasonable, the more aggressive they would be, the better it would be. Therefore, the best way would be to ignore them. See you at the end of the year. After saying that, Yi Chen walked into the guest hall. In the hall, Mu Fengyuan glanced at Yi Chen, at least you know yourself. Ji Xuan is one of the most talented disciples in the Emerald Martial Palace. She is indeed not compatible with you. Yi Chen cursed in his mind, old man, it's none of your business whether I'm qualified or not. You people from the Emerald Martial Palace are all the same, arrogant, thinking that you are no longer a normal human being. Now, even Yi Xian has gotten this weird habit. One day, I will beat all of your disciples one by one. I will let you know that we are all humans, and the Emerald Martial Palace is nothing special. Although he thought so, Yi Chen would not say it out loud. Talking back to a late clasping Yuan realm martial artist, who was also an inner master of the Emerald Martial Palace, would be suicidal. Leader, I will leave now. Yi Chen bowed to Luo Xinglia. Luo Xinglia waved his hand, since the problem is solved, you can leave now. Yes. Turning around, Yi Chen did not even look at Ji Xuan and left without hesitation. Yi Xian, who was standing right next to Ji Xuan, twitched her mouth. She felt a bit embarrassed. They were all disciples of the Yi family, but why was there such a huge gap between them? Ji Xuan said softly, I hope he will not tell Aunt Hui about this. I don't think he would dare. Yi Xian said without hesitation. Chapter 24. It had been 10 days since the engagement was cancelled. In these 10 days, Yi Chen had taken the first Windy Dew pellet. This pellet was just like the rumor said, after taking it, all the distracting thoughts would disappear, and he would feel refreshed. It helped Yi Chen to open up all the meridians in his heart, allowing his qi to flow freely under the training of the heart fire. The heart movement and qi flow were also the fourth pure yuan art rotation. Besides that, Yi Chen had already started training the golden swallow art. This qigong required a lot of qi, it had to be pure and without any impurities, or else it would be very difficult to train it to the highest level. The good thing was that the qi from the pure yuan art was unimaginably pure, and the impurities had already been removed during the second qi rotation. When he reached the fourth qi rotation, after being trained by the heart fire, his qi had gained more spirituality, which made training the golden swallow art much easier. These few days, my chi is getting restless, it should be a sign that I am about to break through to the mortal realm stage 7. The training speed of the pure Yuan art's 4th chi rotation is indeed amazing, but to reach the condensing reality realm is still very difficult. What can I do? To be honest, I have only been in this world for half a year, unlike other people who have been training for 4 to 5 years, or even 7 to 8 years. There is no way to compare. Ever since he knew that Yi Xian had reached the early condensing reality realm, Yi Chen knew that he had to work even harder, or else he might not be able to compete with Yi Xian at the Yi family meeting. Besides, Yi Xian, the second son of his uncle, Yi Tang, was not easy to deal with either. After all, he and Yi Xian were the two geniuses of the Yi family. He took out a jade bottle from his pocket, opened the cork, and a blue pellet rolled out onto Yi Chen's palm. Chi boosting pellet, the most commonly used pellet for mortal realm warriors, it was worth more than 3,000 silvers. Right now, Yi Chen was only one step away from the mortal realm stage 7. He might be able to break through in a week, but he couldn't wait that long. He was planning to use the chi boosting pellet to increase his cultivation and break through to the 7th stage. This way, he could save 7 days of hard work. 7 days of hard work might not mean much to normal people, but to Yi Chen, it meant a lot. With his comprehensive ability, he could learn a high-rank mortal realm skill in 7 days. Even the top-rank mortal realm skill, the Lone Peak of 13 Swords, only took him 2 to 3 months. And that was because the Lone Peak of 13 Swords was incomplete and needed to be perfected. Otherwise, a month would have been more than enough. Therefore, these 7 days had to be saved and not wasted. Sitting cross-legged on the bed, Yi Chen flicked his finger. The blue chi replenishing pill flew into his mouth in an arc and slid down his throat into his body. Gulp. The chi replenishing pill melted the moment it came into contact with water, turning into an extremely pure vital energy. All of a sudden, the pure Yuan chi rushed out of his dantian like a hungry wolf that had smelled blood. Within a few breaths, it had wrapped around the pure Yuan chi from the chi replenishing pill and started to refine it. Such a powerful refining ability. If it was the cloud chi spell, the efficiency would be at least 2 times lower. The higher the quality of the chi, the faster the Yuan chi could be refined. This was a well-known fact in the true spirit continent. Of course, if the total amount of chi was high, it would also help a lot in refining Yuan chi. Under normal circumstances, it was not uncommon for quantity to beat quality. An hour had passed. A light popping sound came from Yi Chen's body. His dantian, which had already expanded a lot, swelled up again, like an inflated balloon. In the center of his dantian, the pure and transparent cyclone suddenly sped up, like a spiritual nebula, constantly swallowing and changing, absorbing the new internal chi. After a while, Yi Chen opened his eyes and slowly let out a breath. His face was filled with joy, he had finally reached Mortal Realm Stage 7. There was not much difference between the peak of Mortal Realm Stage 6 and Mortal Realm Stage 7, but that was only for normal people. If it was Yi Chen, even a little bit of improvement would greatly increase his fighting power, and he would be able to use more of his martial skills. Today is not a good day to continue learning the pure Yuan art. I should consolidate my cultivation first. Yi Chen knew the importance of a solid foundation. If the foundation was solid, then he could continue to improve. If the foundation was not solid enough, then he would be like a castle in the air that could collapse at any time. He might even lose his mind and become a cripple when he tried to break through. After a day, Yi Chen had completely consolidated his cultivation and had even made some progress. This chi replenishing pill could save him a month of hard work. Subtracting the 7 days he used to break through, he still had 21 days left, which was just enough for him to take another step forward. In the following days, Yi Chen took the second windy dew pellet and tried to break through to the 5th chi coil of the pure Yuan art. Of course, life was not like a pool of stagnant water. After the first time he met the outer disciple Wu Zongming, the two became friends. They would chat and spar with each other during their free time. Wu Zongming thought highly of himself. He thought that although Yi Chen's achievements in martial skills were high, there was still a gap between him and Wu Zongming. He did not expect that after limiting his cultivation to Mortal Realm Stage 7, Wu Zongming would be at a disadvantage in a real fight. His high-rank Mortal Realm martial skill, Burning Fist, did not seem to be able to win against Yi Chen's King Kong Fist. He did not know that Yi Chen's King Kong Fist had already reached the highest level. Under the condition of limiting his cultivation, it would be strange if the Burning Fist could win against him. There was no sun or moon in the mountains, and another half a month had passed. That night, Yi Chen applied the body-enhancing paste on his body, planning to break through to the fifth chi coil of the pure Yuan art. He wanted to combine his spirit, chi, hands, eyes, and body into one. As for applying the body-enhancing paste, it was not useless. The body was one of the 6 forces of the human body. Only when the body was strong and full of energy could it increase the success rate. Pushing his pure Yuan art chi to its limit, Yi Chen put his tongue on the roof of his mouth, his eyes focused on his nose focused on his heart, and he quickly entered the state of meditation. Walala, the outside world was silent, but inside Yi Chen's body, the sound of his chi flowing was like a small river, endless. For a warrior, the inner 3 forces of the 6 forces had almost been combined into one. For example, the spirit and chi, the first step for a warrior was to convert the spirit and chi into chi. The spirit and chi were already inseparable, and could be converted at any time. The combination of the spirit and the spirit was the spirit, and with a high degree of concentration, the two could also be combined. The difficult part was how to combine the chi and the spirit, which was called the combination of the spirit and the chi. After many days of meditation, Yi Chen already had an idea. With a thought, the chi flowed along the meridians to the center of the eyebrows, where the soul resided, and the soul was the spirit. After 36 revolutions, the chi that was contaminated with the soul power returned to the dantian. Yi Chen knew he had succeeded, he had successfully combined the spirit, chi and the spirit. Next was the outer 3 forces. The outer 3 forces seemed simple, such as the eyes, the hands, and the body. But in fact, it was very shallow, and even a normal person could do it after hard training. The outer 3 forces of the pure Yuan art was to extract the 3 types of Yuan Qi from the limbs, eyes, and the center of the body. These 3 types of Yuan Qi were closely related to the 3 forces, and they could sense each other. This was the real outer 3 forces. First, he extracted the hidden Yuan Qi from the center of the body. Yi Chen did not dare to be careless, and he was very careful. The center of the body was one of the most important parts of the human body. If there was a slight mistake, the person would become paralyzed, and it would be very difficult to cure, so he could not be careless. The qi slowly seeped into the center of the body, and then it pulled out a very obscure Yuan Qi, and slowly merged with the qi. When the two completely merged, Yi Chen released the Yuan Qi that had merged with the qi back into the center of the body. Using the same method, when Yi Chen also merged the outer 3 forces with the qi, big beads of sweat dripped from his forehead, and his body was completely wet. But it was all worth it. Now that his qi contained the Yuan Qi in his limbs, eyes, and the center of the body, it also contained his spirit. In terms of reaction speed, subconscious speed, attack speed, and the sensitivity of his eyes, there was a qualitative change. Besides that, after the pure Yuan art had entered the 5th transformation, the speed of absorbing and refining Yuan Qi had reached a very impressive level. 1 day of training was basically equivalent to 3 to 4 days of training in the past. Chapter 25. Outside the boundless mountain range was a very complicated environment. There were forests, swamps, wild mountains, and endless water bodies. These days, a human figure could often be seen flying back and forth, killing beasts after beasts. My luck is not that good. None of the 13 rank 2 beasts managed to condense an inner pellet, and there were even 4 top rank 2 beasts. Yi Chen cut open the beast's body with his great steel sword and found nothing inside. He was a bit annoyed. Ever since his pure Yuan art reached the highest realm of the 5th transformation, Yi Chen knew that if he wanted to improve quickly, he would have to rely on external objects, such as the inner pellet of a beast. The inner pellet of a beast was the essence of the beast after absorbing the natural yuan qi. Theoretically, a 1-year-old inner pellet could save a warrior a year of hard work, and a 5-year-old inner pellet could save 5 years of hard work. However, it was only in theory. The inner pellet contained not only the essence of yuan qi, but also the beast qi. If a normal warrior touched a little bit of the beast qi, he would be in danger of going crazy, and if he touched too much, his body would explode. Therefore, no matter how much yuan qi essence there was in the Naiden, a normal martial artist would not be able to fully utilize it. They would have to use an evil warding potion to dissolve the demonic qi within. It would already be considered good if the remaining yuan qi was 1/5 or 1/10. If they were unlucky, the entire Naiden would be dissolved, and all their efforts would be in vain. Of course, if a warrior reached the clasping yuan realm, he could use his Jin qi to absorb the beast qi and use the inner pellet perfectly. However, the inner pellet had to be below the clasping yuan realm, which meant that a clasping yuan realm warrior would not be able to do anything to an inner pellet that was above rank 4. The strong smell of blood attracted a lot of beasts. Yichen closed his eyes and used his powerful soul power to sense a powerful beast qi within 30 meters. It should be a top-ranked 2 beast. Shoo! His body flashed, and Yichen jumped into the air like a huge bird. He glided 20 meters in the air, and fiercely jumped towards a big tree. Swoosh! The big tree was cut in half, and a beast that looked like a wolf and a tiger was exposed. A top-ranked 2 beast, the tiger-wolf beast. Yichen flicked his wrist, the great steel sword turned into a bright sword light and pierced forward. It was the most powerful sword move of the lone peak of 13 swords, the peak of perfection. The tiger-wolf demonic beast did not expect Yichen to act so quickly. Just as it moved its body, its chest was stabbed. The injured tiger-wolf demonic beast was extremely fierce. It clawed at Yichen's arm. Courting death, winding road around peak. Yichen ignored his opponent's attack and poured his inner qi into his fine steel sword. He swung it in the opposite direction and split open the beast's chest. Then, he chopped off the beast's claws. The powerful peak grade 2 demonic beast could not even withstand 2 moves from Yichen. Its body went limp and it slumped to the ground. It was obvious that it would not survive. Looking at the tiger-wolf demonic beast's wound, Yichen's eyes lit up and he said in ecstasy, "My luck is really changing. This tiger-wolf demonic beast has an inner core in its body." Cutting open the tiger-wolf demonic beast's body, Yichen reached out his hand and took out an egg-sized, milky yellow inner core with a hint of pink. According to the information on the demonic beasts, once a rank 2 demonic beast had an inner core, it would have a higher chance of becoming a rank 3 demonic beast. If there was a slight change in the color of the inner core, it meant that it was not far from becoming a rank 3 demonic beast. This inner core was milky yellow with a hint of pink. It was obviously a sign that it was about to become a rank 2 demonic beast. It was much stronger than a normal rank 2 demonic beast, and judging from its size, it should have been at least a year old. A year-old inner core, even if 90% of its demonic qi and yuan qi were removed by the evil warding potion, it would still save at least a month of hard work. Not to mention this inner core that was about to become a rank 2 demonic beast, it might even double its original value, which would save at least 2 months of hard work. Looking at the inner core in his hand, Yichen could not control his emotions no matter how calm he was. 2 months of hard work. It would at least help him reach the late mortal realm stage 7. If he was lucky, after using the evil warding potion, the inner core would still have 1/5 of yuan qi left. That would mean 4 months of hard work and he would definitely be able to reach the mortal realm stage 8. Taking out a jade box from his pocket, Yichen carefully put the inner core into the box and closed the lid to prevent the demonic qi and yuan qi from leaking out. Taking a deep breath, Yichen woke up from his ecstasy and looked at the dead body of the tiger-wolf demonic beast. The materials from a peak rank 2 demonic beast can be sold for at least 1,000 silvers. I can't waste it. After all, I still need to save money to buy the evil warding potion, which costs 5,000 silvers per bottle. Yichen mumbled to himself as he squatted down to collect the materials from the dead beasts. he did not miss a single thing. After collecting all the materials, Yi Chen frowned. The big leather bag he brought was almost full. If only he had a storage ring. Of course, he was just thinking about it. Among the core disciples of the Sky Cloud Martial School, only his senior sister Zhu Mei and Luo Hanshan had a storage ring. How could he possibly have one? However, from this, it could be seen how powerful the Emerald Martial School was. Even Ji Shuiyan, who was at the peak of the mid-condensing reality realm, had a storage ring. There were countless geniuses in the Emerald Martial School, and there must be a lot of disciples who were more powerful than Ji Shuiyan. Sigh, a rank 7 martial school is indeed a rank 7 martial school. They are rich and have all kinds of treasures. My Yi family is one of the top 8 families. Only my father and some of the elders of the family have a storage ring. My mother is one of the most powerful outer elders of the Rudra martial school, so it is normal for her to have one. It is impossible for anyone else to have one. Shaking his head, Yi Chen tied up the leather bag and was about to leave. Suddenly a strong wind suddenly appeared in the woods. Sand and pebbles were blown into the air. Some small plants were uprooted and flew into the air along with the strong wind. Yi Chen was shocked. What kind of strange wind is this? This is too sudden. Whoa! A horrifying roar was heard. It sounded like it was coming from hundreds of meters away. Not good, it was a rank 3 beast. Only rank 3 beasts and above could release their demonic chi and create a gust of wind to confuse people's sight and senses. Before Yi Chen's soul had traveled to this world, he had seen the part where Wu Song was fighting a tiger in the water margin. Before the tiger came out, there would be a gust of wind. But now, this rank 3 beast was way more powerful than the tiger. The wind it created could be compared to a typhoon. Without further ado, Yi Chen activated the pure Yuan art with all of his strength. He jumped up and flew out like a huge bird, trying to avoid the attack of the rank 3 beast. Crack, crack, the sound of trees breaking was heard. After a few breaths, a beast the size of a water buffalo appeared where Yi Chen had been. It was tall and muscular. There was no hair on its body, but it was covered with black scales. Its tail was a long scorpion's tail. The hook at the end of the tail was shining with a gray light. Obviously, it was coated with poison, and anyone who got hit by it would die for sure. Yi Chen turned around and took a look. He immediately pushed his chi as hard as he could, pushed his golden swallow art to its limit, and ran as fast as lightning. This strange beast was a scorpion-tailed demonic wolf. Even among the rank 3 beasts, it was a dominating existence. Even a mid-condensing reality realm warrior would have to stay away from it. Chapter 26. Run. Run as fast as you can. Yi Chen knew that even if he reached the peak of Mortal Realm Stage 10, he would still not be able to fight against the scorpion-tailed demon wolf. The gap of 1 cultivation level was not that easy to make up for. As for the third disciple of the North Snow Martial Academy, Lynch, he was able to beat Wu Wanshan mainly because of his martial arts and martial skills. The North Snow Martial Academy was a rank 7 martial institution, which was a huge power that had been developed for hundreds of years. They had countless rare martial arts and treasures, and their resources were unimaginably deep. However, Wu Wanshan was only a lone wolf, even his most powerful sword art was created by himself. The golden swallow art had been trained to perfection by Yi Chen. When he performed it at full power, his feet would not even touch the ground, and he would run along the grass and trees. Every second, he would be able to cover a distance of 10 meters, which was no less than a real wild goose. Whoa! Before Yi Chen could let out a sigh of relief, a cloud of strong demonic chi shot towards him from behind. Yi Chen did not even need to look to know that it was the scorpion-tailed demon wolf's demonic chi bullet. Any warrior below the condensing reality realm would have their blood dried up and their limbs go numb. With his powerful soul power, Yi Chen's body flashed, and he easily dodged the attack. Boom! The ground on the right in front of him had been blown up, and all the plants nearby had withered instantly. Such a powerful demonic chi bullet, this scorpion tail demon wolf's pellet must be very powerful. If I could get it, it would save me at least half a year of hard work. Wait, what am I thinking? Yichen felt that his thoughts were ridiculous. Whether or not he could escape was still a problem, and he was still thinking about the pellet of the scorpion tail demon wolf. How reckless! Boom! Boom! Waves of demonic chi bullets came from behind, but Yichen could always find the best route to dodge. It gave people a feeling that he was walking in a rain of bullets. The scorpion tail demon wolf was furious. It stopped shooting the demonic chi bullets, and started to chase after the human in front of it. 50 steps. 45 steps. 40 steps. Yichen's scalp went numb. He hurriedly threw the big leather bag into the air, and accurately landed on the top of a huge tree. It would be hard to see from below, and it would also be prepared for him to come back later. Whoosh! After throwing away nearly 100 pounds of demonic beast materials, Yichen's speed increased drastically. He was now as fast as an early condensing reality realm warrior. Added with his powerful soul power, he was unpredictable. But even so, the scorpion-tailed demon wolf was still slowly closing in, albeit by a very small margin. The two of them, one chasing the other, unknowingly entered the depths of the silent hills. The surroundings were dead silent. The scorpion-tailed demon wolf that was chasing behind seemed to be a little afraid. It slowed down quite a bit, its huge head looking left and right from time to time. Suddenly, a huge black shadow jumped out from the bushes and bit the scorpion-tailed magic wolf's neck. Because it was too fast, its body slid on the ground for more than 10 meters. The scorpion-tailed demon wolf struggled with all its might and howled in fear. Unfortunately, the black shadow was much stronger than the scorpion-tailed demonic wolf. With a single swipe of its claw, it shattered the scorpion-tailed demonic wolf's head, causing blood to splatter everywhere. When Yichen turned around, he happened to meet the eyes of the black shadow. The pair of blood-red eyes were sharper than the edge of a knife, extremely evil. Rank 4 demonic beast, red blood demon beast. Yichen was extremely frustrated. He did not expect that after the scorpion-tailed demon wolf, an even more powerful red blood demon beast would appear. If that was it, then he might still have a chance of survival. But the problem was that he was lost, and he did not know if he had reached the depths of the silent hills. Although he was still hoping for a miracle, Yichen rationally believed that he was in the depths of the silent hills, otherwise there would not be a rank 4 demonic beast. Seeing that the red blood demon beast was chasing after him, Yichen forced himself to calm down. He looked around with his sharp eyes, and finally fixed his eyes on the rock mountain in front of him. There was a huge horizontal crack, it looked like it was cut out by a blade, it was immeasurably deep. Without caring about what would happen next, Yichen stomped on the ground with his right foot, and his body flew out diagonally into the crack like a swallow returning to its nest. Boom! The rock mountain was shaking. The red blood demon beast's body was too big, it could not follow Yichen in, but its huge power still caused the rocks to crack, and small rocks to fly everywhere. Yichen did not think that the entrance outside would be able to stop the red blood demon beast. He took out the luminous pearl from his pocket, and with the help of the dim light, he walked deeper into the cave. After walking for a long time, Yichen could no longer hear anything from the outside. Drip! A water drop fell, Yichen instinctively dodged it. Before, I did not know how fast my reflexes were, but I could not believe that I could even sense a drop of water and dodge it so easily. If it was before, even if Yichen could sense a drop of water, his body would not be able to react. But now that he had trained the pure Yuan art, his body and mind were almost at the same level. After walking for a while, Yichen felt a breeze on his face, he was instantly excited. He quickened his pace, and pulled out his great steel sword with his right hand, he started to accumulate his chi in his body. Ho! A cool breeze blew past, and Yichen's eyes suddenly opened up. In front of his eyes was a huge space, it was 4 to 5 meters tall, and he did not know how long or wide it was. It was an underground world. There was a river, trees, and a stone room in the underground world. Outside the stone room was a stone pavilion, inside there was a stone table and 4 stone chairs. Did someone live here before? Yi Chen was shocked. He thought he had found the exit, but he did not expect to find himself underground. Walala! The water in the river splashed everywhere, it seemed like there were fish in the river, and the sound of water breaking could be heard from time to time. As for the trees, they were very strange, they were different from the big trees on the ground. The gray branches were like rocks, and there were only a few dozen gray leaves hanging on the branches. Not daring to be careless, Yi Chen walked towards the stone room. Is anyone here? Outside the stone room, Yi Chen raised his voice. He called out a few times, but there was no response. Yi Chen took a deep breath, pushed open the door and walked into the stone room. The stone room was not big, it was only 3 meters in length and width, and the walls were inlaid with longan-sized luminous stones, illuminating the inside. The first thing that caught his eyes was the huge human painting on the wall in front of him. There was a beautiful woman in the painting. Her hair was like a waterfall, and her eyes were like stars. She looked like a spirit in the wind, like the king of flowers. She looked like she was one of a kind. On the bottom right corner, there was a name, Xianhou. Seeing this name, Yi Chen was shocked. It was Xianhou. There were countless powerful warriors in the True Spirit continent, but there were only a few who could truly rule the world, such as Su King, Evil King, Dragon King, and Xianhou. As the only female among the top warriors, Xuanhou's life was legendary. She became a condensing reality realm warrior at the age of 11, reached the clasping yuan realm at the age of 14, reached the astral reaching realm at the age of 18, reached the Sea of Souls realm at the age of 25, and reached the life and death realm at the age of 35, becoming the youngest life and death realm warrior in the past 1,000 years. She was so powerful that she was called the Xianhou.